Sports fans, join the Rod Squad newsletter today. Stay ahead of the game with exclusive insights, updates, contests, and exclusive content delivered straight to your inbox. Best of all, it's free. Sign up today at rodpeterson.com. Well, last night in Philadelphia, Brady Tkachuk scored 24 seconds into the game. Michael Amadio scored the go-ahead goal, and the Ottawa Senators beat Philadelphia 5-2, and they're going nuts in the nation's capital. Julian McKenzie joins us from The Athletic. He's been covering the Flame. Hey, listen, how did I not meet you? Did we not meet in Calgary all that time I was spending out there, Julian? How did I miss you?
I don't know, man. I have no idea. I'm trying to remember. Like, there was a colleague of yours. I feel bad. I forget what their name is, but someone from your network had me on one of their shows. But we've never actually done any podcasts like this.
Well, welcome. I'm glad to have you. As you know, I'm a big fan
Thanks for
of
having
your work.
me.
I think I've tweeted you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I tweeted you that in the past, and we'll get to the Flames. And you know what? You've been talking Sens all day. Let's talk about the Flames for a second, because you know that market inside out. What is your take on the Flames Canucks matchup tonight in the Dome, baby?
Man, I wish, like, there's part of me that, like, I get, like, I don't cover the team like I did the last 2 years, but I still try to keep an eye out for what's going on there. And the fact that the Flames are in that race for a wild card spot and the Canucks lost yesterday to the Canadiens. I mean, it's so interesting that the Flames are in this situation where they haven't scored a ton, but Dustin Wolf has kept them up. I did not expect them to have this good of a year. Like, I think that's going to be, that's as heated of a Flames Canucks matchup as you could have in the last how many years. Like, this is, like, I mean, every game from here on out for both of those teams is going to be the biggest game of their year. But I kind of like this for Calgary. I like the fact that they've been able to put their playoff hopes in a young rookie goalie who, I mean, I don't think this is a controversial take to say he should win the Calder Trophy, especially if the Flames make the playoffs this year. I know Matvei Michkov gets a lot of love. Macklin Celebrini gets a lot of love. Lane Hudson, I just heard you're a Habs fan. You're probably on the Lane Hudson train. But no one has contributed more to their team's success than Dustin Wolf. And you're starting to get to a point where you look at his goaltending statistics and you're able to put them up against some of the best goaltenders in the world. I don't know how you give the Calder Trophy at this point right now to anybody else. So for that matchup, I mean, the Flames, the fact that they're in the position that they're in, they're obviously going to rely a lot on Dustin Wolf, and he's given them every reason to put those expectations on it.
Let's clarify one thing. I'm a Hab backer, but I'm not a Hab fan. Okay, I respect the organization.
What's the difference between a backer and a fan, then?
How about
the
that?
difference is I'm not a Leaf backer, but I am a Hab backer. I live in South Florida, so I guess I'm a Panther backer, but I'm wearing a Blackhawks top today. So there's very few teams I don't back.
This is confusing
but the
for
Leafs
me,
would be one.
Rod, this is very confusing for me. You just have a whole bunch of different teams you just root for?
Bingo!
Yep, try being
allowed to
between
do that?
these ears, man. I do it.
Being between these ears is confusing enough.
How about that?
Number two, I know you probably didn't think you'd come on and talk about the Flames, but every single one of those players has performed 11 out of 10 all year. And who's responsible for that? It's got to go to Ryan Huska. And you don't hear his name for Coach of the Year from nobody. Deal or no deal.
That's fair. I can. Here's the thing, man. Like, I think Spencer Carberry has that Jack Adams award on lock this year because as impressive as it's been for Calgary this year, sure, Ryan Huska deserves a lot of credit. When he came in after Daryl Sutter, there was a lot of good things said about how he handled things in that locker room as an assistant to Daryl Sutter and how he helped change the atmosphere around that team. And the fact that you're getting performances from those guys and how they've responded to him, and you get Dustin Wolf, sure, you can lump that in there. I think the fact that Calgary and Ottawa have similar, I mean, maybe not as reliant on their goaltending versus what Calgary is, but is Travis Green deserving of some love for Jack Adams? I think there was a point where that could have been the case. But when you look at what's going on in Washington, I'm telling you what, I don't know if I had them. I definitely didn't have them as the best team in the Eastern Conference, let alone making the playoffs, maybe. I think they just squeaked in last year. I think what Spencer Carpenter's been able to do in Washington, he's the runaway favorite for that to me. So I think it's less of people wanting to give flowers to Ryan Huska versus I think we already know who's winning this race.
I know, for sure. But I got to pump his tires because nobody else is. And the one thing I think people discount is that every coach in the NHL is really good. That's why they're there. Everyone's good. So there's a lot of guys that have done great jobs. Now, in your market, so to the Senators, Travis Green, you're there. You're on the front lines. Tell me what they've changed, because there had to have been a culture problem in Ottawa over the last few years. Something's changed. What is it?
My understanding was that this team needed some structure defensively, and while I don't think this coaching staff with Travis Green and Nolan Baumgartner is doing anything revolutionary, it's the fact that they have made it at least a point of emphasis, combined with the players actually buying in. Like I wrote about this a couple weeks ago, where guys like Brady Tkachuk, they got tired of years and years of losing and their defense being a weak point, where they all came together with this system that's in place and they all said, you know what? We're going to commit to this. We're going to find a way to make this work. And I mean, I think entering yesterday's game against Philadelphia was the case. When I wrote that story, it was the case. They're in the top 10 in goals allowed. They have a top 10 defense. And the last time the Senators team had a top 10 defense, they made the playoffs. So it's part Travis Green doing his thing, but Brady Tkachuk, Shane Pinto, all those big stars, all those players committing to a style of hockey that has succeeded for them. They've traded offense essentially for that defense to work, but it's working. So that's what it is.
Good answer. And listen, watching this from the outside, Brady Tkachuk looks very clearly like the most popular Senator since Daniel Alfredson. Take us inside that market and what this guy's doing.
Man, Brady Tkachuk as a guy, he's got the C. He wears his emotions on his sleeve, and the stock in him might not have ever been this high in his career. And of course, a big reason why is because of his performance at the Four Nations. And it's wild to see how fans love and defend him. And as someone who's new to the market, like getting used to stories of how people might have felt about him at the time he was picked, leading up to where he is now, people who talk about him when times aren't so good. And then when the trade rumors surfaced, like when the Rangers, that report came out earlier this year, and how owner Michael Andlauer basically accused the Rangers of soft tampering. Like, it's been fascinating to see him navigate through that whirlwind, while at the same time, he does everything he can to, you know, meet fans and be embedded in the community and give autographs. And a lot of people are gonna, I'm sure you've seen it, but last Saturday, when the Sens came back against the Rangers and he's getting chanted Brady, 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 and you see him be like, let's go. Like he's leaning all into those emotions. And that was a particularly emotional weekend for him. Like he's turned himself, because of all these things that have happened and the Four Nations experience, into this like a bona fide star. Like the Tkachuk name was already recognizable, but for him this year in particular, that star is rising. Like when you see him on these different podcasts and hanging out with the Kelsey brothers with Matthew, like that's not by accident. Like he has a personality worth following. He's going to be on that Amazon Face-Off series at the end of the year. Like he's someone worth following for NHL fans, love him or hate him. And the only thing we're missing from him now is seeing him play in the playoffs. And I mean, at the Athletic entering yesterday, they had an 88% chance of making it. I'm sure you've seen different percentages or from other spots who measure those playoff chances. The playoffs, I think, would benefit from having a guy like Brady Tkachuk and his personality there. We look very close to having that right now.
Colin in Ottawa, I'll get to your question or comment in a second, but just here in South Florida, the fans cannot get past thinking they're going to acquire Brady Tkachuk. I think they're kind of used to whatever we want, we get here. I can't see Ottawa letting him go. Like, is there any scenario in which the Tkachuks play together ever here?
You can take your sentence and you can take out Florida and you could put St. Louis. You can take out St. Louis and put in New York. I saw someone around the Four Nations go through AI and put Brady Tkachuk in a Chicago jersey. The truth is that because of the type of player that Brady Tkachuk is, and because of the style of play that he plays, which so many people believe is suited for playoff hockey, there are about 31 other franchises who would love to have a guy like Brady Tkachuk on their team. And seeing how the Senators have responded to some of those reports, in particular the one that surfaced about the Rangers being interested, it's not the Senators who want Brady Tkachuk on. I can tell you that. I know the no movement clause in his contract kicks in July 1st. Unless something drastic happens, I have no reason to believe that Brady would want out, and I have no reason to believe that the Senators would want him out. And I personally, like, not to editorialize here and get on a soapbox for a second, which I recognize I kind of have that now by being on the show. Why would the Senators do that? Why would they get rid of a player like Brady Tkachuk, who's meant so much to that organization, who's meant so much to that market, and again, plays a style that works in the playoffs? And if you trade him away for whatever assets you need, what if you find yourself in a position where you're like, damn, you know what type of player we need? A guy like Brady Tkachuk. It doesn't make any sense to me that, considering how well he's playing, he's on the verge of like his fourth 30-goal season for this team. Like, and there are people who don't think he's worth keeping around. There are people who are writing letters to the Ottawa Citizen being like, man, I don't like him being captain in our market because he fights. Like, what are we doing here? What are we really doing here? Like, things could change. Anybody could get traded. You know, you get it. You understand how it is. But in the little bit of time I've been around this team, seeing the makeup of Brady Tkachuk, seeing the makeup of how this team has been successful throughout this year, it's working now. Like, when I see people try to kickstart those rumors or are convinced of that, like, things could change, but like, I don't see that happening. Again, things could change. You never know what can happen. But like right now, man, if you're the Senators, you're doing everything you can to keep them around.
Yeah, it was just a couple of years ago, I think there was a quote from Brady that he'd never felt as low as he did at that time in his hockey career because the Sens sucked so bad, but things have changed. And I was talking to an agent yesterday who said, if anybody could get Brady Tkachuk, it's Bill Zito. Because remember this, Julian, I think you were in Calgary when Zito dealt Jonathan Huberdeau, McKenzie Weegar, Cole Schwint, and somebody else for Matthew Tkachuk, and we were laughing at Zito. I was in Calgary. We're like, the Flames fleeced him. How's that turned out? So all I'm saying is, I don't think Ottawa's going to give him up either. But Zito has the sense of if he wants him, he'll go get him.
And I honestly think that, like, look, I respect the fact that, you know, you hear that teams are obviously going to be interested in him. Look, I wrote that story when Bill Zito was interested in Matthew Tkachuk and that trade happened. I wasn't directly in Calgary the minute that trade happened, but I got there after. Bill Zito, months before that trade was consummated, as teams do, they have their meetings where they go over players and they look over guys. And Bill Zito looks at a guy like Matthew Tkachuk, and he's like, damn, like, I wish I could have a player like him on my team. I'm sure there are guys who do that all over, who work for different NHL teams, who study different players, and they look at a guy like Brady Tkachuk and they think the same thing. And I mean, look, it's going to happen when you play that style, when you're a personality like what Brady is. People are going to covet that type of player for your team. So it's going to happen. But like the idea of him like leaving, like, again, things could change, but at least like right now, like I don't see that happening. And I just think that like it's starting to become like a bit more of a tired storyline. I sympathize for those Pittsburgh Penguins fans and media people who get tired of hearing Sidney Crosby's going to play for a Canadian team. And I know people might hear this and be like, "Oh, well, you've talked about it on the Chris Johnston show." I get it, but like, man, that's just how I feel about this whole Brady Tkachuk thing, man.
Well, you're going to hear a lot more, but
I know.
So-
I know.
so-
It's not going to stop.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not going to stop. He's a good player. It's technically a compliment to the player. I get it, but like that's how I feel about it, man.
Well, listen, Julian, this has been a lot of fun. It goes fast with you.
Yeah.
Time goes fast with you.
I know.
That's a good thing, as you know. So no. The interview is very easy, very entertaining. I appreciate it. So keep doing what you do, man. I love your stuff, and thanks
Thank you.
for finally
Appreciate it.
for coming on, man. Okay, good luck. Have fun. Hopefully in the playoffs.
Will do. Thanks so much, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
The Athletic Ottawa's Julian McKenzie. He covered the Flames for a few years, but he has fled to the nation's capital. Bah, bah, bah. Colin in Ottawa writes in and says, Travis Green and the Senators' coaching staff deserves a lot of credit for turning around the Sens' defensive structure, especially Thomas Chabot's game. I will say this. I don't follow Ottawa as closely as people like Julian are in the market, but this is why, I've heard, and I don't know if it's going to be true or not, but press box scuttlebutt that there's a house cleaning coming in Chicago for pretty obvious reasons. But Ottawa's an example of new GM Steve Staios, new assistant GM Dave Poulin, new head coach in Travis Green, and bingo, bango, bongo, very close to making the playoffs. Whereas Chicago, they just keep spinning their wheels all the time. And other teams. So it can be changed. We'll be right back. You and me the rest of the way. Progressive Insurance text lines open 902-518-3033. Switch to Progressive and you could save a bunch. Sports update on the way. Viewer takeover. We'll be right back here on Game Plus TV. Streaming live and podcasting wherever the best podcasts are found.